Hey, and welcome back to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about tritone substitutions, what they are, how to construct them, and where to make use of them. Let me start with a simple definition of what a tritone is. So a tritone is a musical interval in which there are two notes, and they're a tritone apart, which is basically just 6 semitones. So pick any note, let's say B flat, and count up 6 semitones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you have yourself a tritone. Now, it turns out that if you count down 6 semitones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you get to the same note. So you can either count up or down. So now that you know what a tritone is, let's see where it appears. And the most prominent place it appears in is in dominant seventh chords. Let me construct a C major dominant or C dominant seventh chord. So to make this, I basically construct the C major scale, and I pick the first, third, fifth, and flat and seventh degrees of the scale. Now, the most important notes in this C dominant chord are the third and the seventh, the E and the B flat. And I can kind of retain the character or the color of this chord if I just play these two notes. So I'm going to omit the first and fifth. And what I have here is a tritone. So just let's verify this. Let's start with E and count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I indeed get an E and a B flat, the third and seventh degrees, flat and seventh degrees of the C major scale. Now, I can actually use this voicing to play dominant seventh chords. It's kind of sparse, but it still works. It still retains the main character of the chord. For example, I can play a blues using just these tritone intervals. So I was changing chords in the left hand as I was changing tritone intervals. This interval corresponded to C dominant 7. This one corresponded to F dominant 7. To see this, construct the F dominant 7th chord, omit the first and fifth, here's your tritone, and now just invert it. Take this E flat down here. And here's your voicing, tritone voicing for F dominant 7. And this here, this F and B, is a G dominant 7. Now, let me show you something interesting. Let's take two dominant seventh chords which are a tritone apart. So let's take G dominant seventh, which is made out of G, B, D, and F. And let's take a dominant seventh, which is a tritone apart. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's a D flat. So we're going to construct a D flat dominant seventh. So I have these two chords, the G dominant seventh and the D flat dominant seventh, which are a tritone apart. Now, I've told you that the main character of the chord is sort of captured by these third and seventh degrees. So let's see what they are in these two chords. In G, the third is this B, and the seventh, the flat and seventh is this F. And this is the G, this is basically a G dominant seventh chord. And for the B flat dominant, for the D flat dominant seventh, let's take the third and the seventh. Let's omit the first and the fifth, and we get this. Now let's compare them. G, D flat, G, D flat. They're actually the same. See, here I'm playing a B and an F, and here I'm playing an F and a B. I can invert this one. I can just take this B down an octave, and you'll immediately see that they're the same thing. And this is where the tritone substitution comes from. It's the fact that both G dominant seventh and D flat dominant seventh share the two most important chords that let you substitute one for the other. And let me give you a straightforward example. Let's say I'm playing a D minor, going to a G, going to a C. This is a basic 2-5-1 progression. So I'm going to play this progression as follows. I'm going to play a D minor 7 to a G dominant 7 to a C major 7. Now, instead of playing this G major C dominant 7 and D, instead of playing this G dominant 7 in the middle, I can substitute it, I can switch it out for the tritone, or for the dominant 7, which is a tritone away, which is the D flat dominant 7. So instead of playing this, I can play something like, say, this. Right? This is a D dominant 7th, just a different voicing for it. I'm playing a D flat in the left hand, and then a B, F, A flat, and B again in the right hand. So instead of sounding like this, it will sound like this. So the substitution adds tension to the progression. So let me give you two musical examples in context that will maybe help you see where tritone substitutions come into play. Let's start with a progression with a melody, and we'll use some substitutions in that progression. So I'm going to play it in the key of C, as usual, to make it a bit easier on those of you who are not fluent in other keys. And it's going to be an E minor, going to an A dominant 7th, going to a D minor, going to a G dominant 7th, going to a C. And the melody is going to be something simple. It's going to be something like this. So put together, the original chord progression would be maybe this. Now I'm going to use chord substitutions in 2 points. First, I'm going to change the A, or I'm going to substitute a dominant 7th a tritone away. So instead of playing an A dominant 7, I'm going to play an E flat dominant 7th. And instead of playing a G dominant 7th, again I'm going to do a tritone substitution and I'm going to play a D flat dominant 7th. Let's hear how this sounds. I'm going to whistle the melody because I want to play the kind of the chords with my hands. So maybe I can actually play the melody. So personally, I thought the first substitution was a lot better than the second one, so this worked. This chord here, this E flat dominant 7th, this one didn't really work as well because there's a clash, a bit too much of a clash in my opinion, between the melody and the chord. It might actually work. You might want to change the melody a bit, just a little bit, to make it work. So instead of playing this D here, maybe let's play a G. So something like and that fits a lot better. Again, there's a question of whether you're capable of changing the melody. Maybe there's a singer who has practiced a particular melody and you can't really change it on the fly. But maybe it's you just soloing, and then you can make these changes. So it's up to you to sort of figure out where clashes might occur and then maybe not do a tritone substitution there. Let me give you one more example. Let's look at soloing. So let's say that you're playing a C, going to an F, going back to a C. Now, I'm not going to substitute the chord G in any way, but instead of playing on the scale of G, or maybe a G major flattened 7th scale, so a G dominant scale, let me play, or maybe arpeggiate instead, that is solo in the right hand, over the chord which is the tritone substitution of G. So instead of thinking of soloing over G, let me solo over D flat. So I'm still going to play a G, this is my bass chord, but then I might say arpeggiate D flat. So it would sound like this. So I thought the arpeggiation sounded really good, you know. Maybe you don't want to overdo it, but you can definitely play something that's related to G, so start with a C, and then sort of go out of scale and arpeggiate a D flat, and then go back to scale. So you see that the tritone substitution actually is useful not only when playing chords, but also when soloing on these chords. So when deciding which chords to arpeggiate, which scales to solo on, maybe helping you go in and out of scale and do all sorts of more interesting things than just stay on the scale of the chord that you're currently playing. That's it. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.